In 2023, researchers gave GPT for a battery of prediction questions. How likely is this war to escalate? Will this company hit its earnings target? Will this election go the way the polls suggest? It performed at roughly the level of an untrained crowd. No better than asking random people on the street. 2 years later, a system built on the same underlying technology is statistically indistinguishable from the top 2% of human forecasters on the planet. This isn't a story about chatbots getting smarter. This is a story about what happens when machines learn to do something humans have always struggled with. Honestly assess how likely things are to happen. And it changes everything about how money gets made. Most AI tasks are evaluated by humans. Did the code work? Does the essay sound good? Is the image realistic? Someone has to judge. Forecasting is different. You make a prediction, you wait. Reality tells you whether you were right, no judges, no opinions, no subjectivity, just the cold truth of what actually happened. This matters because it means the training signal is free and infinite. Every prediction that resolves is a free lesson. Every day creates new questions. Every week provides new answers. The system generates its own curriculum. And here's the thing most people miss about expert forecasters. The top 2%, the people researcher Philip Tetlock calls superforecasters, they don't have secret information. They don't have higher IQs, they follow a protocol. Decompose the problem into smaller parts. Start with the base rate. How often does this type of thing usually happen? Update incrementally as new evidence arrives. Treat your confidence as a variable, not a feeling. A protocol that can be described can be automated. A protocol that can be automated can be scaled. And a protocol that can be scaled changes the economics of every decision that depends on predicting what happens next. The systems approaching expert-level performance share a common architecture. And understanding it matters because it reveals where the edge actually comes from. Step 1. Search, not the question itself, but smart subqueries. Will the Fed cut rates? Becomes what did the last 3 Fed minutes say about inflation expectations? And how do current swap markets price the next meeting? And what's the historical base rate for cuts when unemployment is below 4%? This is where the biggest gains live. Remove the search component and accuracy drops catastrophically. One research group measured a 3.5 times increase in performance just from adding structured retrieval. But here's the counterintuitive finding: more information isn't always better. One study found that feeding the system unfiltered news articles actually made predictions worse. Then giving it nothing at all, noise drowns art signal. The systems that work best don't just search, they filter ruthlessly. Step 2. Ensemble. Don't ask one model once. Ask multiple models, multiple times, and combine the answers. This chart tells the whole story. 1 forecast, unreliable. 3 forecasts averaged together, significantly better. 6, better still, beyond 10, you hit diminishing returns. The errors cancel each other out, but only if the models are genuinely different. 10 copies of the same model with the same biases won't help. Diversity of perspective is what makes averaging work. Step 3, calibrate. Raw AI predictions are systematically wrong in a specific way. The model's hedge. When the evidence says 90% likely, the model says 70%. When it should say 5%, it says 20%. Everything gets pulled toward the middle. Why? Because during training, confident wrong answers get penalized harder than cautious right ones. The model learns to hedge its baits. Safe, but wrong. The fix is surprisingly simple. A statistical correction called Platt scaling stretches those hedged predictions back toward the extremes where the evidence actually points. It's the mathematical equivalent of telling someone trust your instincts more. So how good are these systems actually getting? On Forecast Bench, the main public leaderboard, Superforecasters score around 0.096 on the Brier scale. Lower is better, 0 is perfect. The general public sits around 0.1 to 1. The gap between expert and average is small, just 0.0 to 5, but closing it is incredibly hard. The best AI system, a multi-agent ensemble from Bridgewater's research lab called the AIA Forecaster, hit 0.108. The gap from Superforecasters wasn't statistically significant. For the first time, on at least one benchmark, the machine matched the experts. The trend line projects full parity by December this year. That's 9 months from now, but there's a catch. On live tournaments where bots compete head-to-head against professional forecasters on the same questions, the humans are still winning decisively. Every individual pro outtranked every individual bot. The gap might even be widening, so which is it? The answer matters. On standardized tests, AIA is approaching parity. In the messy real world where questions are diverse, formats vary, and you're competing against people who are also improving, the humans still have the edge. This gap is a temporary technical limitation, not a permanent ceiling. The live tournament results predate most of the recent advances. But right now, today, the honest assessment is approaching expert level, not yet reliably there. Here's where it gets really interesting and where the trajectory becomes clear. Researchers recently tried something different. Instead of building better scaffolding around existing models, they trained models specifically to forecast using reinforcement learning. The training signal, the real outcomes of real predictions, scored by mathematically proper scoring rules that reward honest probability estimates. The results were dramatic. Calibration error dropped 65%. A 32 billion parameter model trained this way outperformed a 235 billion parameter model that wasn't. Smaller, cheaper, better, because it was trained on the right objective. And here's the finding that might matter most in the long run. One research group found that models trained to be well-calibrated forecasters showed improved calibration across completely unrelated tasks. Math, science, general knowledge. Training a model to be honest about what it knows in one domain appeared to transfer broadly. If that replicates, it means forecasting isn't just a narrow skill. It's a gateway to building AI systems that are fundamentally more honest about their own uncertainty. That has implications far beyond prediction markets. So what does this mean for ordinary people? 3 things. First, cheap predictions change what gets predicted at all. Right now, getting a Superforecaster's opinion costs hundreds of dollars per question. Prediction markets only work for questions that attract enough attention and money. That means the vast majority of decisions, should I refinance now or wait? Is my industry about to be disrupted? Should I hedge this position? Never get a calibrated probability estimate. They get gut feelings. Drop the cost of a decent probability estimate by a factor of 1,000 and suddenly every financial decision can have a number attached to it. Not a perfect number, but an explicit one. And here's the key finding from the research. Even a mediocre explicit estimate improves decisions more than a better implicit one. Researchers found that forecasters using AI assistants improved their accuracy by 20 to 28%. And here's the twist, a deliberately noisy, overconfident assistant produced comparable gains to a well-calibrated one. The improvement came not from the quality of the prediction, but from forcing beliefs into explicit form. When someone says, "I think this will probably work out," there's nothing to push back on. When they're told the estimated probability is 65% based on these 3 factors, they can engage, challenge, and adjust. Making the implicit explicit, that alone is worth the price of admission. Second, forecasts become a coordination language between our agents. This is more technical, but it matters. Right now, if you have multiple AI systems working together, they either force consensus, losing information, or tolerate disagreement, losing coordination. Calibrated probability estimates offer a third option. 2 agents with explicit estimates can identify exactly where they disagree, by how much, and what evidence would change their positions. For trading systems, this means an ensemble of agents can disagree productively rather than averaging away their insights. A momentum agent sees 70% chance of continuation, a sentiment agent sees 45%. Instead of blindly averaging to 57.5%, a supervisor agent can investigate why they disagree and route to the one with better calibration on this type of question. Third, and this is the one nobody's talking about, well-calibrated forecasters generate anomaly signals for free. When a system that's calibrated at 95% accuracy suddenly fails, that failure is information. It means something structural has changed. The model expected the world to behave one way and it didn't. That's a regime change detector, not because it predicted the change, but because its failure to predict reveals it. In financial markets, regime changes are where fortunes are made and lost. The transition from bull to bear, from low volatility to high, from trending to choppy. A system that's honest about its own confidence gives you an early warning when the rules change. In the first video on this channel, I talked about the 1,000-day window. The idea that AI is becoming the fourth factor of production alongside land, labor, and capital. This is what that looks like in practice, not robots replacing workers on a factory floor. Probability estimates that used to cost hundreds of dollars becoming available for fractions of a cent, decisions that used to be made on instinct getting explicit numbers attached to them. Agents that can coordinate through calibrated disagreement rather than forced consensus. The systems are still behind human experts in live competition, but they're improving in a domain that generates its own training data. Every prediction resolves, every resolution is a free lesson. That trajectory tends to resolve in one direction. The question isn't whether AI will predict the future better than you. It's whether you'll have one predicting alongside you when it does.